Somewhere in the Amazon rainforest, there is a plant that could cure cancer. Scientists haven't found it yet, and at the rate we're burning the forest down, they never will. The Amazon isn't just trees. It isn't just rivers, jaguars, or tribal lands fighting for survival on the evening news. It is the largest natural pharmaceutical library ever assembled on this planet. 3 million square kilometers of biological complexity that took millions of years to build. And we are burning it. Field by field, season by season, deal by deal. Hundreds of prescription drugs already on pharmacy shelves were pulled directly from Amazon plants. Drugs that fight cancer. Drugs the World Health Organization classifies as essential to human survival. But here's what should terrify you. Scientists have only studied less than 5% of Amazon plant species for medicinal potential. The other 95%? Untouched, unknown, and disappearing faster than we can count. This isn't speculation. This isn't folk medicine passed down around a fire. This is peer-reviewed science sitting in medical journals that most people will never read. The Amazon rainforest has already given us hundreds of prescription drugs. Not supplements. Not wellness teas. Actual pharmaceutical compounds, the kind prescribed by doctors, dispensed by pharmacists, and listed by the World Health Organization as essential medicines. Medicines the WHO considers so critical to human health that no functioning medical system should be without them. Think about what that means. A plant growing in a remote corner of South America, being studied by a researcher, broken down to its molecular components, and turned into a drug that is now saving lives in hospitals on the other side of the planet. That has already happened. Repeatedly. Curare, a compound indigenous Amazonian hunters used on blowgun darts for centuries, became the foundation for muscle relaxants used in surgeries, performed millions of times every year. Pilocarpine, derived from the jabarandi plant native to the Amazon, is now on the WHO Essential Medicines list. Used to treat glaucoma and to relieve the severe dry mouth suffered by cancer patients undergoing chemotherapy. The indigenous Guarani people of Brazil had been using jabarandi medicinally since at least the 1500s. Modern science followed that trail and confirmed what they already knew. The pattern is undeniable. Indigenous peoples across the Amazon spent thousands of years accumulating knowledge about local plants. Which ones healed wounds? Which ones reduced fever? Which ones stopped bleeding? Every time researchers have gone deep enough into the chemistry of an Amazon plant, they have found something worth studying. Something with biological activity against bacteria, viruses, inflammation, or cancer cells. Every single time. The Amazon isn't a rainforest sitting on top of potential medicine. It is a proven, documented, already delivering pharmaceutical engine. The question was never whether it contained cures. The question is how many we've already burned. Less than 5% of Amazon plant species have ever been studied for medicinal potential. Let that number sit for a moment. Scientists have spent decades with laboratories and funding and dedicated research programs, and they have covered less than 5% of what's there. The remaining 95% of Amazon plant species have never been analyzed for what compounds they contain, what biological activity they might have, or what diseases they might treat. That is not a gap in the research. That is an almost total absence of it. The Amazon contains an estimated 80,000 plant species. If the fraction already studied has produced hundreds of essential medicines, including active cancer treatments, the mathematical implication of what the other 95% could contain is staggering. We are not talking about minor compounds. We are talking about potential treatments for the diseases that are still winning. Cancer in its most resistant forms. Alzheimer's, for which there is still no cure. Antibiotic-resistant superbugs, one of the fastest-growing threats in modern medicine, for which we are rapidly running out of options. The Amazon's untouched 95% sits directly in the path of all of those unsolved problems. And here is where the tragedy becomes almost unbearable to process. Science moves slowly. Drug discovery from a plant compound takes years, sometimes decades, from initial study to clinical trial to approved treatment. The forest is not waiting. Deforestation moves faster than research budgets, faster than field expeditions, faster than the time it takes to sequence a plant's chemistry and understand what it does. Researchers are racing against a deadline they didn't set, in a library that is actively being torn down around them, trying to read books that are catching fire before they can open them. The 95% is not a future problem waiting to arrive. It is disappearing right now, today, while you are watching this. The Amazon rainforest contains 30% of all species on Earth, not 30% of rainforest species, not 30% of South American species. 30% of every living species on this entire planet is concentrated in one place, one ecosystem, one region that represents roughly 1% of Earth's total land surface. That number alone should stop you cold, and every single minute a football field of that forest is destroyed. Not every hour, not every day. Every minute around the clock, the equivalent of a football field of irreplaceable biological complexity is gone. The trees, the undergrowth, the insects, the fungi, the microorganisms living in the soil beneath it, all of it. Here is what makes this different from any other environmental loss. When a factory closes, you can build another one. When a building burns, you can reconstruct it. But when a species disappears, it is gone from this planet permanently. There is no recovery. There is no rebuilding. Extinction is the only irreversible event that nature produces. And extinction is happening in the Amazon at a rate scientists describe as catastrophic. Each species lost carries with it a unique biological profile, a set of compounds, proteins, and chemical structures that exist nowhere else on Earth. Not in any other forest, not in any laboratory, nowhere. When that species is gone, those compounds are gone with it. Whatever disease they might have treated, whatever molecular key they might have held, vanishes permanently into the category of things we will never know. This is the compounding nature of the loss. It is not linear. Every species extinction removes not just one potential cure, but an entire biological chapter. Complex, interconnected, and completely unrepeatable. The Amazon is not losing species the way a library loses old books that can be reprinted. It is losing species the way a fire loses pages, permanently, and without a single reader ever getting the chance to open them. So who is actually doing this and why? The answer is not a mystery. It has never been a mystery. The Amazon is being destroyed by a combination of cattle ranching, soy farming, and the political machinery that protects both of them. A system that has been running, with brief interruptions, since the 1970s. Yet Brazil's military government opened the Amazon to development with highways and land grants, offering free plots to settlers willing to move into the forest. Those settlers cleared the land, raised cattle, sold the beef, and pushed deeper when they needed more space. The pattern locked in early. Deforestation became the default mechanism for economic expansion in the region. By the early 2000s, the global demand for soybeans, used primarily as feed for farmed animals, accelerated everything. Brazilian soy exports exploded. Farmers converted cattle pastures into soy farms. Ranchers took their cattle further into untouched forest. The arc of deforestation expanded north, eating into some of the most biodiverse land on the planet. And the political system, rather than stopping it, accommodated it. Yet Brazil's ruralista bloc, conservative politicians representing agricultural and ranching interests, grew from roughly 17% of Congress in the early 2000s to nearly half by the late 2010s. Forest protection agencies saw their budgets slashed. Environmental oversight was weakened. Land seizures were quietly legitimized. And in 2019, over 30,000 fires burned simultaneously across the Amazon. Many set deliberately by ranchers clearing land they felt the government would no longer penalize them for clearing. This is not an accident. It is a calculated economic trade. Short-term agricultural profit extracted from land that took millions of years to build. The brutal irony is that the land cleared for cattle and soy is among the least productive on Earth once the forest is gone. The soil degrades within years. the profit disappears. But the species burned to create it are gone forever. Here is the hardest part of this story to sit with. We will never know what we have already lost. That is not a rhetorical point. It is a scientific reality. When a species goes extinct before it has ever been studied, it does not leave behind a record of what it contained. There is no catalog entry, no preserved sample, no partial data set waiting to be completed. It simply ceases to exist, along with every compound it carried, every biological mechanism it had developed over millions of years of evolution, and every potential application that compound might have had in a laboratory that will now never get the chance to examine it. The Amazon has already lost an estimated 17% of its original forest cover. That is not a projection. That is the current measured reality of what is gone. 17% of the most biodiverse ecosystem ever documented on this planet, cleared, burned, and converted, mostly within the last 5 decades. Within that 17%, there were species no scientist ever named, plants that no researcher ever collected a sample from, compounds that no laboratory ever isolated, and somewhere inside that permanent, uncatalogued loss, statistically, given everything we know about the medicinal density of the Amazon, there were almost certainly treatments, possibly cures. For what exactly? We cannot answer that question, and that is precisely the point. This is the particular cruelty of losing something before you understand its value. You cannot calculate the cost of a cure you never found. You cannot measure the lives that might have been saved by a drug that never made it out of a forest that no longer exists. The loss registers nowhere in any economic model, no quarterly report, no political ledger. It simply vanishes. Quietly, completely, and without anyone left to account for it. The most expensive thing in the world is not what we have destroyed. It is what we destroyed without ever knowing what it was worth. Go back to the beginning of the story. Somewhere in the Amazon, there is a plant that could cure cancer. That was not a dramatic opening line. That was a statement of statistical probability, supported by decades of pharmaceutical research, backed by the World Health Organization, and confirmed by every scientist who has ever studied what this forest actually contains. And we are burning it, not because we have to, not because there is no other way to feed people or grow economies, but because the system that profits from burning it is more organized, more funded, and more politically protected than the system trying to save it. The cure may still be out there. The 95% is still there for now, but the window is closing faster than the research can move. If this story made you think differently about what the Amazon really is, watch our next video, because what happens next is even more important than what you just learned.
Thanks for spending a few healthy minutes with me. If this video helped you feel better, learn something new, or take a step toward a healthier life, consider subscribing and joining the journey. Keep the good habits going. Tap here to watch the next video and build on what you started today.